Hi, it's Scott Allen. Today I want to look at the set piece contest between the Wallabies and Lions in the first test. First up, the scrum contest, where I had expected at the beginning of the tour that the Lions were going to have a significant advantage. But with Alex Corbizero in there as the third choice loosehead, it wasn't the threat that we've been worried about early in the tour. In the first scrum of the match, the Wallabies received a free kick for the Lions engaging too early on their own feed, and it made them a little bit hesitant on some of the other engagements in the early scrums. In this scrum they get their timing right, and you can see here that they win the hit. And because Alexander starts so high, you can see he was already popping up into the air. Corbizero gets underneath him. It's a great drive from the Lions, and the Wallaby scrum was on roller skates. I'm always concerned about Ben Alexander's scrummaging technique, and here's one of the reasons why. You can see he's starting with his hips high, his legs almost straight, his shoulders therefore below his hips. That opens him up to either going straight to ground or to getting caught high with the loose head getting under him and driving him backwards. In this scrum it doesn't matter, because the Lions are gun shy of engaging too early, and so they miss the hit. The Wallabies get a much better hit, and you can see that already both Corbizero and Adam Jones are on the back foot and are both hinging with their hips popping up above their shoulders. As a result of the Lions missing the hit so badly, Alexander extends way beyond what he thought he would. His knees go back behind his hips, feet slip out from under him and goes to ground, but the ref allows it to play on without a reset. From that point on in the match, the Wallaby scrum was really good, particularly in the second half. This scrum early in that half, before the Lions made the replacement of their props, you can see it's a fairly even scrum, and then Ben Robinson just starts to drive back a little bit on Adam Jones now. At this point, that scrum is stable, everyone's pushing in the right direction, both sides are up, and then you can clearly see Jones roll his shoulder down and take the scrum to ground, right in front of the referee and the assistant, and yet it's Ben Robinson that's penalised. No wonder Ben Robinson was absolutely livid at the decision. That was actually the last scrum that the Lions starting props packed. Once their replacements came on, the Wallabies started to get on top. Here's the only scrum in the match where the Wallabies starting props went up against the Lions replacement props, and the Wallabies are doing well. Who knows what Vernopola's doing on the far side of that scrum, but he's certainly not scrummaging well. Now here's the first of two Lions scrums in the final 10 minutes that the Wallabies won. At this point the scrum is square, but you can see Dan Cole's knee on the ground. He's gone to ground, he's no longer got any power to resist the force on that side of the scrum. So when the scrum now starts to wheel around, that's not James Slipper driving around, it's simply that Dan Cole has got nothing to resist the force. Slipper completely dominated Cole in that scrum at a critical time in the match. Again in the final 10 minutes, this time it's the Wallabies feed, and they win the hit and drive both sides of the Lions scrum backwards. Now with the Lions scrum going backwards quickly, James Slipper doesn't keep his shape and puts his hand on the ground to stabilise himself. Just as Jones should have been penalised in that earlier scrum I showed you, by rights, Slipper should have been penalised at that scrum as well. Now we go to the last scrum of the match, and again the Wallabies win the hit. Cole is in dreadful position, and you can see he goes to ground here. That's his knee on the ground. Lost all ability to resist the force coming through from Slipper, who drives straight through him. Vernopola's also in dreadful position on the other side of the scrum, outside of Kepu, where his weight is not being transferred through to the Wallaby side of the scrum. It was a good performance from the Wallaby scrum, and with Vernopola starting at loosehead for the Lions this week, I actually think the Wallabies have got a real opportunity at scrum time. Now to the lineout, where the Wallabies only had 5 lineouts in the match, and they were all good. What I want to focus on is the Lions lineout. First I'm going to have a look at some very marginal throwing from the Lions. First line out of the game, the mark is on the 10 metre line, and that's where Tom Youngs is currently positioned. As we roll the footage on, you'll see that he takes a step towards the Lions lineout, and the assistant calls him back to the mark. Once the assistant steps back, he takes the step back to the Lions side so that he's throwing directly down the line of the Lions inside shoulder. As a result, the throw's right on the edge of the channel between the two teams, rather than down the centre as is required. But because the Wallabies aren't competing, there's probably a little bit of leniency there. If you're not going to contest, it's pretty hard to force the referee to call a throw not straight. Again, you can see Youngs here has moved almost directly down the line of the Lions, and the throw, it's not in the channel, it's directly above where the Lions catcher is. Here's another example where it's lined up directly on that inside shoulder, and this one starts to stray even a little further towards the Lions side. Once again in this example, he takes the step towards the Lions side, and the assistant moves him back to the middle of the lineout. Now this throw, he actually stayed there, and the throw was straight down the middle. The assistants keep requiring him to come back to the middle of the channel, and he keeps taking that step towards the line out. As a result, the Wallabies start to close the gap because they know they've got no chance of winning the ball. But the other thing they've got no chance of winning the ball from is them not competing. If they were competing, as I said, I think they've got a much better case to argue that these throws aren't straight, or at least are disadvantaging the Wallabies. And this is the area in the line-out where I think the Wallabies can improve most for the second test. They've made a conscious decision to give the Lions the front of the line-out. Why would you do that? Because it's very hard to attack wide when you win the ball at the front of the line-out. The maximum you can probably get the ball to when you win at the front is the 12 channel. Now, did giving the Lions the front of the line-out have any impact on how they were attacking? No. Here's the first line out of the game. The Lions would have been looking for a nice easy throw to get Tom Youngs into the game, and they were never going to play wide. So they had no issue with winning the ball at the front of the line-out, as they do here when the Wallabies don't even compete. That's a nice, simple, easy win off the top, ball delivered to the 12. They were never going wider, so they didn't need back ball. Second line out of the game, again, the Wallabies give them the front of the line out. Did this change what they were doing? And what I want you to do here is to watch what the back pod are doing. You can see them moving backwards there into position, and the play calls for George North to receive the ball quite close, with those two members of the back pod being first into the breakdown. So they were never an option to throw to. The Lions always wanted to win the ball at the front, and with the Wallabies not competing, they just made it easy for them. Now to the third line out of the match, and the Lions have set up a play where they've gone with a 5-man line out with 2 of their back rowers out in the back line. The first play is always going to be a punch by 12, so they don't need to win the ball at the back of the line out again. They're quite happy to take the front, which the Wallabies effectively give them. Their play here was to go wide on the second phase, and that's why Jamie Heaslip is standing out in the 13 channel. They didn't need to go beyond the front of the line out, and the Wallabies have just made it too easy for them. Fourth line out of the match, their play is they're going to drive off the back of the line out, but they go to a shortened line out to reduce the Wallaby numbers to resist the drive. When they want to win the ball at the back, they simply outmaneuver the Wallabies on the ground, win the ball cleanly, and it's no contest from the Wallabies again. You'll see then the rest of the forwards come in, they know it's a drive, and the Wallabies are caught short, and actually the Lions win a penalty anyway. Fifth line out of the game, this time the Lions are on the Wallabies line, they want to win the ball in the middle to drive, and that's where they go. At least this time the Wallabies competed and put some pressure on them. Sixth line out of the game, this time the Lions are down on their own 22. They're not going to try and win the ball at the back because they're not playing wide. They're quite happy to win the ball at the front because Mike Phillips is just going to box kick. Once again, the Wallabies don't compete at the front. Make it easy on the Lions. It's a clean win. Bring it to ground, straight to Phillips for the box kick. Seventh Lions line out of the match. Again, the play they've called is a punch at 12. You'll see that when we go out to the wider shot with Davis and O'Driscoll both in the 12 channel. So they didn't need to win the ball at the back of the line out. The Wallabies gave them the front. Thanks very much, we'll take that easily. Again, no contest from the Wallabies. Eighth Lions line out for the match, and this time they do want the ball at the back. They're going to go for a drive at the back of the line out. Again, no contest from the Wallabies. Now in the second half, the Wallabies actually improved their defensive play. They actually competed in 3 of the 4 lineouts. So in this particular lineout, whilst the Lions have called a short lineout, they want to win the ball front middle because they're going for a drive. At least this time the Wallabies competed, made it a little more difficult for them, and actually stopped them in this maul. Now in the 10th line out of the match from the Lions, the Wallabies actually revert to just giving them the front, and the Lions are happy to win it there because they're going for a drive again. It's actually a terrible throw from Tom Youngs. He gets the timing completely wrong. He should have been throwing the ball just as he takes off from the ground. In fact, he waits until he's almost started to come down before he throws the ball. Now we move to the 11th line out from the Lions in the match, and this time they want to play a little bit wider. They need to win the ball in the middle of the line out at least, preferably the back. They call the middle option, and the Wallabies compete. At least made it a little difficult, but by winning the ball in the middle of the line out off the top, Lions had a good attacking ball. In the final Lions line out for the match, they win the ball at the front, which is where they want it because they're driving, but at least the Wallabies put them under some pressure. The Brumbies showed in their match against the Lions what you can do when you put pressure on the Lions line out. By not competing, and particularly at the front of the line-out, the Wallabies aren't changing the way the Lions are attacking, they're just giving them easy line-out wins.